not to be an asshole. Got it.
I did not say that. Please
I'm
feel
trying
free.
not to. That's for me. My
Okay,
personal.
we are hopefully live. I'm real bad at making this shit work, so we'll see what's happening. I have with me, we have Craig, Michael Ivy. In what you're on Ordo now? Yes, no, maybe. Did everything freeze on me?
Different people. Formerly Iron Phoenix, we qualified with Ordo for the IMCF Nationals for that first place.
Yep.
Um,
And you run the Ludus Gym, right? Or
I
practice
do,
or
yeah.
whatever you. I don't know what you guys. Yeah. Okay.
A community. We're a community, the
The
Ludus
Ludus
community.
community. Okay. And Brett, you are on the Warlords, and you're the head trainer at Warlord Academy, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So that's the Bonafides. I'm me. I'm nobody. So we're gonna talk. I wanted to get you guys on because Craig, you're running a training community, and Brett, you are the head trainer. And I want to talk about how. And Craig, you ran winter camp, right? Last year, possibly the last 2 years. I don't know.
That was the person that kind of organized and set up
Okay.
all the trainers that came in and reached out to basically all the people that I knew who actually taught in this sport, and so we just tried to coordinate all those people into one space.
Right. So have some experience with the idea of training, very much. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how you run your practices, what you come up with drills, and maybe we'll just kind of freeform it from there, and hopefully kill at least a half hour to an hour.
Sounds
Right.
good.
So if either of you wants to go first on sort of what your practice looks like on a sort of daily, weekly basis.
I can go. So we have a lot of different practices throughout the week, and all of them look slightly different. Um, by and large, more often than not, our practices looks like we're doing a warm up. The warm up's going to have some skills portion in it, but it's mainly just warm up. Once we get past that, I generally teach a few concepts or a few moves or a few whatever new things for our students to try and play with. And so that'll be kind of the middle area, and then almost every practice, then we end with a pretty large amount of open sparring, so that there's opportunity for people to try to put anything that they learned into play, and also opportunity for them to work on whatever it is that they were working on when they walked in there. Because I don't feel like just because I have something new to show you, I shouldn't. I need to be giving you time to work on whatever you're working on as well.
And so how often a week is that practice? And do you do other more specific focus practice, or is that just the whole thing?
So that's the standard for my grappling practice. I also coach women's, run that practice every week. That's generally, we do a warm up. We may go over a concept, but more often than not, because we just really want reps, because a lot of the girls are newer, and I mean, I say newer, everyone's new in this sport for the most part. There's not a lot of
There's no
old
tenured
hats.
vets. There's no tenured
Right,
vets in America.
exactly. Right. But I mean, I think some of the most experienced women on our team are sitting at a year and a half, maybe. So like, but we have a lot of people at 6 months, 7 months. So for them, after warm-ups, we do 3v3s, 4v4s, whatever we have there, soft kit, and then we just run it over and over again. We run sets of three, then we'll discuss things. We'll talk about mistakes that were made. If I'm seeing something, uh, if I'm seeing a specific mistake that we're making a lot, then we'll go over technique on that one thing, and then we just go back and hit that up, start training again. Then Saturdays is our armored practice. Armored practice, we do warm ups. Warm ups are often like we'll do one-on-one rounds. Like I might do a pro fight round, but they'll be 45-second rounds and 60% strength, or something like that, just to get warmed up
And this is every week, every Saturday you're doing armored work.
every Saturday.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, yeah, we have a 4 hour practice every Saturday. Normally we show up, and over the first hour we just slowly armor up, and then we put in 2.5 solid hours generally. That we do a lot of it. I mean, it just depends. Sometimes we do singles days. Sometimes we do melees days. We do melees more often than not, but we try to get a little bit of everything that you might want to do in on that. And then Sunday we have a little skills practice, and we'll often work on footwork stuff and grappling, and that's way more. That's the only practice that we don't do any open sparring. It's just kind of technique work and drill work.
Okay. It looks like it froze on my end.
Oh.
Are we back? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay.
You froze a little bit on us.
Yeah. So that didn't happen when I did a test on Saturday, but it's happening again. So fuck. Hopefully that is the one little hiccup, but we'll see. Craig, do you want to talk about what your practices look like?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I will point out, just for people that are listening to this, is we probably basically I see there's kind of two formats. Like there's a few places around the United States that have like dedicated training facilities, like the Warlord, like the Knights Hall. We don't necessarily have that yet, but it's kind of cool that, in my opinion, the best training regimen is the people that are going to have the dedicated training facilities. So ultimately, I think everybody should be looking for that. Right now, our post-COVID, like we've kind of coming back, trying to hit our stride with the post-COVID gatherings again, and that has affected our like training regimen. So I'll kind of go look over what we're doing now and what we were doing. Right now we're doing Tuesdays, Thursdays. Generally our Tuesday practice is dedicated completely to grappling, and our Thursday practice is dedicated to pro fight style fighting. We feel that 100% that the grappling is the foundation of the sport, so we're trying to get as much grappling training in as possible. We got a lot of BJJ guys. We have multiple MMA guys that have become part of our little group, and so we're like, our practice and our format starts on Tuesdays with that grappling. We do just basic warm-up. Then we do basic grappling drills like pummeling and like head control. And then we'll go into a little more full body just practice where we add in some foot sweeps and trips while actively doing full body control. And we look at this and we try to do this every single Tuesday. That's just part of our warm-up. That is the foundation of the sport. If people are still at that basic level, like they definitely need to practice just those basic how to move a human around with just the basic grappling techniques. And then as we progress through that Tuesday practice, we move more into more challenges and like 2-minute. A lot of times we'll do 1 minute on, 1 minute off. Sometimes we do 2 minute on, 1 minute off. But we're looking to really push people. So our wrestling practice is also our conditioning. So we don't like a big piece of what I don't recommend is there's so much skill involved in the wrestling, and there's so much fitness available to you just in practicing the wrestling that itself is a workout. That itself is a way to physically develop your body.
That is, we also, especially in grappling class, often go the same route. Like, ending conditioning is also ending grappling, and I might run a specific drill that makes it kind of gauntlet-ish, but gauntlet in a way that the people coming in are being very cognizant of not injuring the training partner, right? That's always a big part, but like forcing someone to push through grappling is just one of the easiest ways to gain skill and conditioning at the same time.
Right, and in Seattle, it's really interesting for us because we have, in my opinion, some of the best fighters in the sport right now. So we have a lot of really high-end fighters and grapplers, and we have a lot of the brand new fighters. And so, you know, it's a good transition for us to teach like newer fighters and how to progress them to be more intermediate, advanced style grapplers, and we get our own like challenges. Like if I'm wrestling Colin, I mean, it's a brawl. Like we go super hard. You know, it's like we don't necessarily know who's going to get the best of each other, you know, each practice. And and then our Thursday practices for soft kit. I can't express how important soft kit training is. Like that is, beyond wrestling. Soft kit is the second piece of that foundation. It gives you, the ability to move, get to feel what it feels like to have a helmet on. You get to feel what it feels like to get punched and kicked, and get hit with weapons. You start to learn range and timing and movement. And same thing with our Thursday practice. Pretty basic warm up. We first thing in our soft kit, and we think this is like a huge piece of soft kit. We start in our warm up every time with grappling in our soft kit, because one of the things that people don't realize and recognize is it's one thing to grapple with just your bare hands. As soon as you add the gear, the swords, the shields, the axes, it completely changes the dynamic. Like you can still do a lot of the basic functional movements, but so much shit starts to get in your way. You can use a lot of that stuff, that equipment, that gear to manipulate your opponents even. So the people that start to understand how you can manipulate using the gear also becomes like a huge tactical advantage. So
it's shocking how much stickier people are in gear. Like if I get a hold of someone who's in gear, it's very hard for them to get out. If they're out of gear, if they're skilled at all, they're going to duck out and run. Like you really got to get used to that.
Yeah, and it's even more so in armor. So soft kit gives you one piece, and then you add the armor element to that, and they become even more so grabbable. And our soft kit is, like I said, a little more pro fight oriented. We like pro fights a lot just because it does teach the striking element more so, and so to me it's like we're getting both of those foundations. We're getting the grappling on our Tuesdays. Thursdays we're getting our foundation and striking, and to us that's like the key. Ultimately, in the future, when I want to start making sure we have a weekend practice, and we used to have these, but again, COVID kind of messed it up. But as those come back, those will probably become our melee practices.
So you don't do any full armor right now, Craig?
Well, most of our fighters that go to events and are active at events are pretty veteran fighters, and so to me it's armor is really important for kind of beginner intermediate fighters. I think it's huge. As you gain more skill, I think it becomes less important to train in armor, because one of the things with, as soon as you put on armor, it doesn't matter how good you are, it starts sapping your energy. You put 50 pounds of armor on, your energy starts going down, so you're just going to get less reps. Whereas the soft kit, you can train almost the same identical stuff, but you can just get way more reps in.
Yeah, that's been the Hall's philosophy for a while. It's one of the reasons I was surprised to hear Brett say that they go every Saturday. But if you get a 4-hour block, you might be able to put that in. But I'm also surprised.
That's the big thing.
I'm surprised you're able to get people to do 4-hour blocks of time on a Saturday. Like, I guess part of that might be there's nothing else to do right now.
Well, and they're smaller now than they were pre-COVID. But wow. We do like 11 to 3, so it's like it's a good time for not doing anything really. We've got a pretty good community where a lot of us hang out anyway, so going there on Saturday is fine. I will say, on Craig's point, I do agree that the more time you get, the less time you need in armor. The big thing for us, though, is that we constantly have new fighters, and it feels like we're handicapping them if we're not making sure to give them a day a week that they can get in armor.
Right.
And a lot of our newer fighters constantly express the idea of, like, I just wish I could get in armor a couple more times a week because it feels so different when I get in armor. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but you'll get past that.
So on that, do either of you guys do half kit practice? Like just legs, just arms, just helm? Nope.
We did way back in the day, but I think since we've had WCA, I'm not sure we've done it. So no.
Craig?
I feel like the soft kits are just replaces that. I don't really see any reason to go half kit if I can be full soft kit or full armor.
Fair. So you guys talked about there's a huge focus on grappling. Both of you are calling that very much a foundation of the sport. Do you guys prefer to train people with sort of with disciplines as they are, like, hey, this is exactly how we do it in judo, or this is exactly how a wrestling throw is, and then later have people learn, or do you want to try and teach them the modified for armor version first? If either of you want to take that.
So one of the fun things, I do try to go visit Brett as often as possible down in Texas, and one of the cool aspects of our training is Brett is doing judo and I am training wrestling. And I have a gym where really high-end collegiate wrestlers are there, and I like most people think I'm tough. Those guys fucking throw me around like a little rag doll. But it's been my biggest learning tool. And then I know Brett is almost in the same exact environment from a judo perspective. And so one of the cool things when we get together is we kind of get to trade off kind of that information that we're working with, and then some of the information that he's working with. And now, from my perspective, to answer your question, I tend to prefer teaching the basic movements with your body and how your body functions. So like a more true style of grappling, like all of your options that you can do in grappling, because you have way more options out of armor than you do. So basically, to me, it just builds a bigger toolkit if you're just doing just the basic out of gear practice. So you have a huge toolkit, and then as you put on the armor, you can that toolkit shrinks, but you can figure out and refine like what's going to be the best versions of that when you're in armor.
Yeah. So I used to always teach just the straight judo technique, and then I would talk about stuff from there. Nowadays, if I have gotten something that I am regularly doing in armor really successfully, I'll just straight up teach it how I'm doing it in armor.
Okay.
I may then go over like this is how judo does it. If there are things that like are new to me that I'm having some success with, I'm not hitting it a lot, but like I feel like there's something there, I'll teach it how judo is, and then I'll talk about what's been working for me. But that's mainly what I do. Most of the sports are going to have subtle differences that don't transfer over well, right?
Oh.
So
wrestling, you can't shoot in armor, so it's like high crotches and stuff like that which are just huge moves in wrestling, are almost non-existent in armor.
I've hit a fireman's carry one time in armor. So
oh, please tell me you have footage of that. Please tell me you have footage of that.
I probably do. I didn't pull it, but I would
find
yes,
that
I do,
fucking
somewhere.
footage. I need that in a GIF form immediately.
That would be awesome.
Oh my god. I've been trying to do that even just in SoftKit recently, just for fucking shits and giggles, and it is not going well.
Oh, SoftKit, I can hit it all the time.
What?
It's not too hard once I figure out what to do. In armor, just adding 50 pounds or 60 pounds to me and them,
so
it gets awkward.
How are you doing it without dropping? Because like the way I was taught it is you're dropping, and that pull is what gets them on your shoulder, not the lift. So what are you doing?
All right, so I normally go like an overhook wizard on. I always go with my left hand over their shoulder,
it a wizard?
Right? Yeah.
It's a wizard. Yeah. That's the name.
No. Did you add a D? I heard wizard.
Yeah, I know that it's wizard. I thought it was wizard for a very long time, and I still say it all the time.
I'm all right. Honestly. You know what? That's how we should teach it in our fucking sports for nerds. It's a wizard now. It's a wizard. It's happening. All right.
I'm gonna grab your wizard, Steve.
So I do the overhook generally with my left arm, and I just make sure that my forehead is below their head. If their head goes below mine, you can't do it at all. So I have this over, and then I put my head kind of into their shoulder area, and then I kind of twist to try to get them to step across, like, to my right side. So, like, I'm trying to, and if they take the step, the second they step, I duck my head under and through and grab inside leg.
And that's enough to get them up and on, or are you just strong as fuck?
No, I mean, it's worked for me so far. You just need to
Have
make
you
sure
get-
that you step deep with your right leg. If
I,
you
All
I'm,
right.
don't
I'm going to
step
point
deep
out
with your right
that,
leg,
that Brett has not done it to me. So I'm looking forward to
Now you're looking for it though. He's not gonna get it. You're gonna be like, the one thing I can't let him get it. Oh, this is the one thing I can't let him get.
that's just because Craig is constantly grinding his forehead into my chin, so it's difficult to get under.
Hey, let's speak about that actually for a second. So that's a thing that I used to wrestle in high school a little bit, and I've never really played with like fucking with people's heads or grinding. And Kat picked that up recently. He was like, "Oh, this is a thing actual grapplers do," and he's been doing it in our practices. And we're trying to figure out if it's actually transfers. So, Craig, you do it. Do you think that transfers into Kid at all?
Fuck yes.
Okay.
Your head is another hand.
Yep.
So it's like you can be leveraging and moving people with your head
Yeah.
all over the place. I don't think it's a very good striking tool, but it is
Well, no.
definitely a good leverage tool.
Okay.
And
I think the biggest thing is it shuts down the other person's offense.
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
if Craig, like a lot of the stances that Craig will get into, if he would just pick his head up, I would have an easy entry for a throw. But because his forehead is down into my face, I have to figure out how to deal with it before I can ever enter for an attack.
All right. Cool.
yeah, it's just another way to anchor onto people as well. And a lot of times we use our hand anchors, head as an anchor to prevent people from doing throws or big movements against us.
Nice. All right. Cool. That's a nice little tip. Not really related to how we design drills. So, little off topic, but whatever. So back on that. Okay, you said you do a lot of pro fights is your other thing, and Brett, you were also saying you try to get sparring in as often as possible, but I didn't hear any talk about. And admittedly, I was fucking with tech to get chat up and running on my phone, so maybe you did say this, but I didn't think I heard either of you talk about specifically working striking like on a bag or on a pel work in class. So is that a thing you guys do, or you just say, "Hey, go home and do your fucking reps"?
Go ahead.
I am a firm believer that that's kind of what you do on your own. That's
Yep.
part of your single. Like you need to learn how to do it, and you need to learn the right way to do it. But you don't really need to do that in class. And to me, it's just it's like if you even watch boxers and stuff, you're not seeing a class full of boxers hitting. You're seeing the one guy smashing shit. So that's him working on his stuff. That's part of your own personal development. You got to figure out like your skills and what you're going to be good at with that striking based on like your body type and your strengths and your weaknesses and all that stuff. But everybody needs to be hitting a heavy bag or pelling or whatever. That to me is that's part of the daily routine.
Yeah. The only time we really use it in class is when we're teaching newer fighters, someone who really needs to work on mechanics. We need to sit there and break it down. And that's something that we can have them hit over and over again. If we're doing like pro fight type stuff, we'll sometimes have people work combos, but generally they're working it on another person, almost like holding pads in boxing, only the person is defending themselves, so you can have the combo move back and forth. So we do a little bit of that, which is pelling-ish, but mostly we do not pel in class. We do some. We definitely do some.
We do a lot of offense-defense drills, similar to what Brett was saying, and basically one person is actively giving their best defense, and then one person is actively giving their best offense. And we'll usually not do that at 100%. We'll usually do that at like 50, 60%. And it allows people to really actively practice combos and strikes and figure out what they're doing wrong. And then you can kind of watch and observe and correct some stuff.
So I got a question on that. So if I'm the defender in this, I'm just blocking, right? I'm not throwing any shots to sort of like a jab to keep you off or like a teep or what?
Well, it depends. So it's like some defense is offensive. So I might close on somebody and bind their arm or something like that, or do a wizard. I might give them a wizard. because that's part of defending yourself. So little things like that. When we do offense defense, we encourage like to close and to initiate some grapples just to stop an offensive attack, because it's super effective to close on somebody to stop them from hitting you.
Yeah.
So we teach that as part of your active defense.
Okay. But it's not. But you're not using like defensive blows. It's just
No.
it's just your guards and your binds. Okay.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, we don't do a lot of the striking offense defense, but I do that on grappling, and it's one of my favorite drills to do. And I specifically have a rule that you cannot use distance as your defense.
Oh, wow.
I want you to be stepping out of things. I want you to rotate. I want you to find the way to like counter their movement. I don't want you running away for 30 seconds or a minute.
All right. I got another big question on just general stuff. How do you deal with like one of the big problems that we've had is getting our top skills people with our low skills people, and that seems to be across disciplines. I've just started BJJ, and like there was all the jokes about the spastic white belts, and
Sure.
so how do you guys deal with that? Because you got some really talented people at both of your gyms, and you're both said you got a bunch of new people coming in. So sort of, what's the basic way to make sparring work and keep everyone safe and keep everyone working well?
Yeah, okay, real quick, you're not asking how we teach both at the same time, you're asking how do we stop them from hurting each other?
Both. I'm asking both. I'm asking how do you stop them from hurting each other, but also keep them engaged, right? Because like if you just say to your top guy like, hey, this guy's a fucking spaz, just let him spaz out. Sure, but he doesn't learn anything, right? And that doesn't help your top guy. So he's got to want to be involved in that fight. So how do you keep them involved? Do you just pull your top guys out for a little bit and put them back? Do you work specific things? I don't know. Just tell.
Well, one, most of the time when we have someone who's kind of spazzy, I would prefer them to be against my top guys because they can handle that, right? So like the number one thing is I'm gonna have them wrestle me, and I'm gonna work with them, but I know that I can defend myself, and I'm gonna sit there and be like, all right, this guy's gonna get a little wild from time to time. I need to defend myself. And then you generally just work with them and get them into a place where they understand the flow and what they should be doing. Because most of that's just like, you're new. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing, so you're just excited and doing things. So I think you just work with them, and more often than not, I do exactly what you were just saying, in that I put them with my top guys, so I know that they're not going to get hurt until I feel comfortable that they can fight with the rest of the people without hurting them.
Okay. And then how do you keep your top guys not wasting their time then?
Well, so making sure we have multiple rounds,
Okay.
so that the top guy gets 1 round with that guy, and then 3 rounds with the other people that are going to work him. But really, I just feel like that is probably the reason it is so important to have a decent amount of sparring in every practice. Is that everyone needs to be able to get a lot of rounds against different people. And honestly, I think that it's good for the top end guys to deal with the spaz from time to time, because it lets you make sure that your basics, your fundamentals are really what's needed when someone's wild and crazy.
Yep.
All the other stuff comes in when you're starting to play like the chess game. If a dude has no idea what chess is, it's real hard to know what move they're going to use, right? So you have to be very fundamentally sound. So I think it's real good from time to time to have someone just do something crazy on you, so that you make sure you're doing the right stuff, and then we work with the crazy guy and try to make him
Cool.
tighten up.
Craig?
Yeah. And we're pretty much the same process as well. If we have a new guy come in, guaranteed starting with our advanced grapplers, and there's a benefit to that. The benefit to that is teaching. Like, our advanced people get an opportunity to teach a brand new fighter, and I always feel there's a lot to learn in just teaching these techniques. So when you come into our environment, we have a lot of really people that I really trust to be like, hey, you handle this new guy, teach him some stuff. And one of the cool things about doing that too is most new people, as they come in, after a couple rounds, they're fucking gassed. So it doesn't really matter who they wrestle after that. They're kind of done, So it's like, you let them do their thing. Maybe you I don't know, assert some dominance over them, just to kind of show that you know what you're talking about. I do think that's important, but it's part of the training process. You want to learn from somebody who you feel like knows what they're talking about.
Right.
And yeah, and so once you kind of gas them out to me, then I become more comfortable with them interacting with everybody else. And we have very specific to our practices, we have a very consent-based practice, like where we talk and we're like, hey, if you're injured in any way, talk to the guys, say, hey, don't fuck with me here. If you don't want to wrestle somebody specifically for whatever reason, say, hey, I'm not up for wrestling you today. For any reason, like we're super about just making sure people are comfortable at the practice.
Cool. That's very important. I think that's probably a thing that gets lost a lot, because there's definitely some pressure, I think, in the sport, just to you got to go to everyone you can go with. So that's it.
Mhm.
I just want people are talking in the chat, so I'm gonna catch up on that real quick, and then we'll get back into it. We were freezing. Kate says hi. Hi, Kate. You guys want to say hi to Kate?
Okay.
Hi, Kate.
Josh agrees with Craig about armor. Josh talks a lot. Land says hi. Hi, Land.
We love Land. I love Land.
Everyone loves
Love you,
Land.
buddy. Right? How can you not?
Josh says there are 3 people you need to train with: the guy who's worse than you, the guy who's the same skill with you, the guy who's better than you. You can work on new stuff against the guy you are better than. The guy who's just as good as you is going to present problems you have a chance to solve, and the guy who's better than you shows you how much better you've gotten. Top guys should be happy to work with new guys. If they help bring the new guy up, it will eventually mean the new guy gets hard to work with. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I will say that I do all of my my experimenting on new people. Like that's I 100% know that I can make newer people move how I want them to move, and then I'm like, okay, so there's this move that I want to try, and then I'm like, all right, so then they do it, I move them however, and then I mess it up, and I'm like, okay, so I mess it up this way. Like that's definitely one of my biggest times to learn myself new stuff.
Yeah. For me, generally, I have one specific skill that I want to be practicing at the practice, and if I actively try to practice it on the newer people to see where my skill set is at that day. Trying to see if I can pull it off. Unfortunately, I'm with some pretty good skill sets to where I can work with new people, moderate people, and advanced people. So it really is beneficial to have all 3. Real quick, I want to add that as I am traveling to Texas to train with Brett and their crew down there in a couple weeks, you got to find people to train. I think one of the things that we're missing in the sport right now is people seeking out the top fighters and the top trainers and training with them. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to get. If you look at any MMA fighter out there, they're traveling, they're looking for the top trainers in the sport to train with. They're building these teams of people that actively are helping them develop skill. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that too much yet in the sport, but I'm hoping that in the next couple of years, people start traveling more, not just for tournaments, but for skill development.
Yeah, I do want to at some point touch on the training camp in particular and that idea. So we'll get into the idea of doing seminars and stuff like that. There's another question in the chat. Also, Lance says he loves you too. And then, but what about experienced fighters who spaz out? So I don't know if you guys have that. But the guy who thinks he's so good and then starts having a shitty day and he starts fucking going ham. Or just a dude who maybe gets a little too competitive, treats every practice as a competition. But how do you have that? And if so, how do you deal with it?
So we're lucky we mainly don't have that. We've got a couple of people probably who push a little too hard sometimes. And generally it's just, honestly, it's kind of like what Craig said. If someone's pushing too hard, most people don't want to fight him. And we're fine with no one fighting him. People don't line up. Often, if someone's pushing too hard, I'll generally just bite the bullet and be like, "All right, you're fighting me. Let's go," because I know that I can handle it. But it is a problem sometimes, and it's something. I don't know that I have a great answer for how to deal with it. I have a great answer for how to live with it, but maybe not how to fix it.
Well, is that the answer? Is you just suck it up? Is that the answer to how to live with
You
it?
don't fight them if you don't want to fight them, and if they're hurting newer people, then you tell them that they can't fight newer people.
Okay.
If if they're hurting everyone, then you just don't spar with them, and you tell them why. A lot of people will fix what they're doing pretty quickly if no one will spar with them.
Cool.
So.
Craig?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, that's a communication issue. We don't really have that in our practices. Like, everybody's really like awesome in our practices. But like I said, I think just having like we talk about like that. I try to bring it up every few weeks. Just discussing like the consent element of our practice. Because I want people to, even if they have slight injuries, to come train. But make people aware that you have this strain or mild injury, and we can avoid that. We can work around that. I'm happy to work at half speed with anybody. As long as they're going to get something out of it, I think that's awesome. But yeah, to me, it's just communication. Your leadership is going to be the key in preventing, the people who are going to be kind of a little jerky out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds basically how we handle it. But anyway, so drilling in particular, like not sparring, but actual like, hey, we want to work this skill or this concept or whatever. Do you guys come up with your own? Do you steal them from other sports? Is it a hybrid approach? How often do you prefer? How much of your time is spent drilling versus sparring? And do you let people drill on their own, and you just go break off into groups, or are you sitting there watching them as they go? Let's run with that.
Go ahead. So individually, like when it's like one-on-one, I feel there's just so much great stuff to steal from judo, MMA, wrestling that completely transfers over to the drills that we need to work on.
Name some. Name some of your favorite drills.
We'd like to do a tripping drill where you just line up your feet next to somebody and you just actively practice like pushing your body weight into them and just tripping, just trying to trip each other essentially. Okay. Let's see.
Sorry.
I mean, there's lots of stuff like when we work on foot sweeps, there's a very common foot sweep drill that they do in both wrestling and judo where basically you stand in front. I'll take a step in. As the person steps backwards, I'll sweep that foot and then immediately put it down. Then I will step back as the other person steps forward and sweeps my foot. And so like there's these like go back and forth things that are nice warm-ups for timing. A lot of drills, though, in my opinion, are about like kind of getting the motion down and the timing. And once we got that basically down, I like to move into like situational drills, or basically like a drill where it's a little bit closer to free sparring, but it's a forced situation. So like maybe kind of like what it sounded like Craig was doing, where like you're standing side by side and you're actually trying to trip the other person. Now you may not be going like 100% trying to trip the other person, but you're like forced into a position that you will see each other, you will find yourself in every now and then with a specific goal in mind and battling over that goal. So I do a lot of situational stuff once I've gone over the basics. The basics that I go over are very often, this is how you do it, then we break apart into two, and me, and if I have someone who's assisting me that day, they'll help. A lot of times it's just me, and I will work with them all so that they can kind of get the technique down and do reps, and then move into sort of situational stuff where I force situations where it's a good option.
A couple other additions as I've sat here and thought. I think checking is one of the skills that most people aren't very good at yet in the sport, and it's such a powerful skill in Act 1 of that fight. that checking is probably the easiest way to take down any person on the battlefield.
Absolutely. I'm really curious on how you're training them, because we have started training them on Sundays a specific way, and I'm not sold on it, but it's what we've got. So I'm interested to hear how y'all are doing it.
Well, so far we're doing just the technique, like literally, like learning the technique of dropping your hip, driving your body up into somebody. Most people struggle with that right there. So
most people go straight at them and just extend.
Right, and so just getting that technique down of, and we start, so just one of the ways that we start, one, you start face to face with the person. So you're like hands linked, and so you just drop your hip and pop, drop your hip and pop.
Okay.
And so that's step one, and then now you have to add movement to that. So now you take a step back, and so you step and pop, step and pop.
You say pop, are you just doing like palms to chest pop?
Drive the hip, drive the hands into the opponent, and usually they're just standing there, so it's not, they're not doing anything.
But like, are you doing palms to chest, like football style?
Yeah, like football check. Yep. Okay. You're popping out, dropping the hip, coming up, driving up into opponent. So one, face to face. Number two, one step out, and then number three is like 3 steps out. So that's the practice of running into your opponent. And then we do like an angle of pursuit. So you'll have just like one guy. Because when you're checking somebody, you don't want to check somebody from the front quadrant. It's a fucking waste of time to check somebody from the front quadrant if they know what they're doing.
Or the
it might work against a new person, but everything works against a new person.
Yeah.
So you're looking to check people from the side or from the back. And so usually they are moving in some way. So we do like an angle of pursuit where you chase that person down as they're moving and do a check on them.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of that, and we'll have someone, generally our fitness instructor, Adam, will pad himself up, and we'll put a bunch of crash mats and other mats down, and then you'll angle of pursuit, and the goal is to basically, like, there's like a 10-foot area of safety where you can hit him, and he'll just let him hit it. And it's been solid. You can definitely check someone, but I'm also always worried because we're just drilling the guy.
It's hard to do it at full speed, because if you check somebody properly, they're going to go flying. You know?
Yeah.
So that's awesome that you guys have that set up to where you can go at a higher.
Yeah. So we get up there, maybe not 100%, but we get up in like the 80%. Like we're going.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So.
Another thing is I'm a huge fan of the shield strikes and chops, you know? So making sure, like, most people still don't understand how powerful a shield strike is. And so that left-handed strike to the open, you know, to a head of your opponent is still really powerful, but you have to be able to punch somebody really hard for it to be effective. And so teaching the technique, getting people to learn how to generate power from a left-hand strike is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Is my mic working? Are you guys hearing me?
Yep.
Okay. I hear you.
I'm just getting weird feedback on my control panel. I don't know how this shit works. Sorry, I tuned out at the end of that because I was having tech issues. But it sounded like you guys had a great conversation about checking and punching. Good. So
just for other people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also for me, so I can steal all of your guys' shit without flying you out here because I'm broke. And like, I know I'm not going to Texas because, you know, like, good on you guys, but I'm not traveling right now. So, yeah, hopefully when this shit all dies down, I'll be back out there, and hopefully I'll make next winter camp if it happens again. So, anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you guys, well, actually, Craig, you said you're trying to get back into melee practices, and Brett, I know you just said you're the women's coach, so I know you guys are focusing on melees a little bit. What do you guys do for teamwork drills? Or do you do teamwork drills?
We definitely do 2-on-1s. We do a lot of 2-on-1s.
Just sparring?
Depending. Generally speaking, we do 2-on-1s where I talk about like situational. I don't like doing a lot of 2-on-1 in the open field. Every now and then I'll do it because it's important to learn how to line 2 people up. And it's also important as the 2-person to figure out how to like explode and generally push someone onto the rail so you can lock them down. But it's not something I see in actual Boo Hurt very often. So I generally focus my 2v1s on two people are grappled on the rail, and then we start and a teammate enters and figures out how best to help. And then at that point, it is until they get them on the ground. So we just let them work a lot. There's certain stuff that we've learned. There's certain stuff that, like, I'll sit there and shout kind of notes or things that they need to do as they're doing it. Like the biggest thing is making sure people aren't pulling against each other. That's like 80, maybe 95% of every 2v1 in the sport is one person hugging them one side and pulling as the other person grabs their head and yanks them the other way, and the dude in the middle is just like, I guess I'll stand here while these dudes counteract perfectly and stabilize me. I can't tell you how much I love people doing that now, because I figured out that I can use one of them to throw the other one really effectively, and it's one of the easier takedowns I can get now is just have two people grab a hold of me from either side and then just use one like a rail. I'll rail throw off of my opponent. So anyway, big push is making sure that they are working to a single goal or a cohesive goal. And I almost don't care what that goal is if they're working together towards the same goal. As it happens more and more, they're like, everyone's getting much smarter about what they need to do. And also, I'm just all about experimenting. So as long as you're working at the same goal, do it. If it fails, we're going to learn. So the big thing, yes, don't pull against each other. Work for the same goal.
Mm-hmm. So my addition to that is the 2-on-1 is the key to the sport. Like the people that can work together in a 2-on-1 cohesive team, like that is going to be the foundation. And ultimately, the sport is going to evolve into almost like a playbook. As soon as we get enough people that invest into the sport in that 2v1 tactical situation. And there will be a lot of like cool communication and tactics and things like that to come out of it. We're not quite there yet. We still got a lot of basic to get down first. But to me, it's like the things to remember in the 2v1 is like what's the weapon setup.
Brett, can you hear him? I can't really hear.
So every
Craig,
time.
Hold on, Craig, is your mic? I lost you in the middle of that.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I just want to let him finish. I was just asking if you could hear him because
just real quick, Ringo, I think every time you make noise, it deadens
motherfucker.
out Craig.
All right.
So you laughed, and your breath then made him die out.
I'm moving my
No
mic.
laughing. Stop laughing.
I can't help it.
All right, so to me, it's like weapon setup is like a big part of the 2-on-1. If you got the axe guy and the sword and shield guy, you probably want to be the sword and shield guy should be holding and keeping the individual fighter from defending against the axe guy. We want to let that axe guy do his work. And then, maybe the axe guy gets tired of smashing his axe into this person who has like really good armor on. Now you got to look at the grapple situation. So now the axe guy has to work cohesively with the sword and shield guy, and maybe that is transitioned back out to striking. Maybe the shield guy goes into more of a striking mode, but the striking is to create openings for the grapple in most scenarios, unless you got a really good axe guy that can just pop somebody and they just want to make them want to fall down. So it just kind of depends on what each of those scenarios looks like. But 2-on-1, that is like every drill, almost in Boo Hurt that we look at, should be based around that 2-on-1 situation, because ultimately, like, how you win in this sport is maximizing your 2v1 time.
Yeah, I can see that. So another one I want to go into is you are both very physically gifted athletes. You're fairly large. You're not huge, but you're fairly large men. Both very strong men. How do you deal with coaching people who are slower, who are smaller, who are weaker, who don't have the gifts that you guys have?
I mean, I think that you just really focus on the the basics and like what you need to be doing. Like really, so one of the things I talk about on this topic a lot is that like good body mechanics is always good body mechanics. It's just that the stronger and better that you get, the more you can cheat and have bad body mechanics and still get away with it, right? So I think that as you are working with people who are weaker than you or smaller than you, the biggest focus is just like on what the proper technique is and making sure that they're doing the proper technique. Like with striking, a lot of times with striking, if I'm dealing with someone smaller, I make sure that they fully chamber every time, because someone who is big and pretty strong might be able to cheat how much they chamber, and they might think that they have good body mechanics because they had the correct body mechanics from the point that they started the swing, but it may be that that is not a large enough distance that someone who is not as strong as you could have gotten it there with the same damage. So I just focus on making sure that I'm not trying to cut too many corners that I might be cutting.
Craig, anything to add?
I mean, I push fitness all the time. To me, it's like we're still very underdeveloped athletes in the sport in terms of fitness, and so it's just one of those things that part of the things that I tell people, I'm like, if you want to get better, part of getting better is training your body. Part of training your body is moving heavy weights, doing anaerobic conditioning, just working on your mobility, just things like that. That just doing any and all of that is going to make you a better athlete. And combine that with lots of skill practice, and that's the only way you can get up to be that, just like any sport, a high-end athlete.
All right. I'm gonna check the chat because I've run out of easy leadable questions. Kraken asks for the breakdown of how much time for each of your stuff. You guys talked about what you did, but you didn't. I don't remember you going into time per like this is how long we do a warm up. Did you? And if not, can you maybe talk about like if I do an hour practice, this is and how much do you, if you do break it down like that, how important is it to stick to those times? Like we need a 15-minute warm up every session or whatever.
I mean, I think on average, we look at like 5 to 10 minutes warm up, now probably 10 minutes warm up, take a water break, then you've got 20-minute skills, water break, 20-minute sparring. That's pretty average. We generally have an hour fitness class before that happens, so we don't go more than an hour after that. But I always want to make sure I get sparring in, and I will stay late to make sure that I've got at least 15 to 20 minutes of sparring. The other stuff, it depends on the day. There are some days where I'm like, we're sparring today, 1 hour. Like, or we warm up 50 minutes straight, we're sparring. And I know that you're all going to be exhausted by the end of this. We'll take breaks. We'll take water breaks. If you have to take a break, step out, wait out around, but we're just sparring. Like, to me, that's the number one most important thing to get in. All the other stuff is super important, but you can't miss sparring.
Craig?
I agree with that too. For us, I'm a huge advocate of making sure you are exceptionally warmed up. Warming up is one of the number one rule of our practice is don't get hurt. Like if you get hurt, you can't practice. If you can't practice, you're losing for yourself and you're losing for everybody else because, I want to train with everybody. If you're broken, I can't train with you. So I'm a big advocate of a pretty good warm-up. Usually that's about 20 to 30 minutes for us. That includes like some mobility pieces. That includes like active agility, mobility stuff. We're kind of limited right now because we're training in some dirt, but I really like, a little more animal realistic type movements, like natural. You're starting to see a lot more like natural movement style things, and that people are working on in different sports and things like that. So big advocate of warming up. Part of because we're in a less formal training place than like what Brett is. I try to see who is there and kind of follow a training format based on who is at practice. So if we have like brand new guys, we go back to more basic skills and we kind of drill a little bit longer time frame in that. If everybody shows up and they're all like moderate to kind of advanced and they're pretty comfortable with all the basics, we'll go a little harder. We'll practice some more advanced things, or we'll do just like really, really hard sparring.
Cool. Well, that's basically all I got. If you guys have any, well, I guess if you can tell like a group they have 2 to 3 people. That's it's not just the guy's backyard, but he's trying to start up a group and he doesn't have access to top trainers. What's the one drill? Like you can only tell him one drill. What is the drill that you're gonna tell him? And you can't YouTube it, so you gotta make it so that he can understand it with your words. What's the drill? Is it just spar?
I mean, I would specifically spar grappling.
That's exactly what I would say. I would say wrestle to takedowns.
Yep.
Like, you'll just one, your fitness will get better, and two, if you're wrestling with good people, you're just gonna learn through them kicking your ass. And so just wrestling with zero skill development to me is like the number one thing you can work on.
Like wrestling is just always incredibly powerful in this. Striking is like it's really good at times, but also people can just out armor striking from time to time.
Yep. Or I mean, there's also the problem where there's the dude who's like you fucked him up and he doesn't fight for the rest of the tournament. But that unless you're playing a chapter match, that doesn't help you.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons I fucking hate tournament style. We actually had a question about whether you guys train for tournament style or chapter match, but I assume it's since no one's doing chapter match styles anymore. It's all tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we train close to for chapter match, but really we just train to be able to go for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, but that's a tournament. Tournaments you gotta go 4 hours, 5 hours. You might not get as many rounds, but you have to be in armor for way longer.
Yeah.
Which is a different rule. Did want to bring up the other thing I almost forgot. Seminars, training camps, stuff like that. So there's been training camp 4 years, 3 years. How long have you?
Winter camp.
Winter camp.
Yeah, winter camp's been going on about 4 years. Yeah, I think 4 years now.
And that is, as far as I know, the only really truly dedicated event to training in the United States.
It's the only one that I know of.
Yeah. And so that's a really cool thing. Hopefully that gets to happen this year. That doesn't,
Yeah, and we don't know.
The things stay open-ish.
We have a date set, but whether we can do it, we don't know.
Yeah. So hopefully that gets to happen. But I know, Craig, you've been traveling around both learning and teaching. Brett, I don't know if you've been out to teach anywhere. But
yeah.
But how do you guys like? That's the thing that like me and Kat started really trying to do. I was trying to do on the East Coast for like 2-3 years, just try to get to the places where other people weren't at to pass the knowledge on. How do we grow that? How do we make these seminars happen? Because that's a huge thing that you see in every other martial art. You have the top trainers coming out, and they'll teach for a day, or maybe they'll teach for an hour at a gym, and they'll do some sparring or whatever. But like. Or they'll have a convention where it's a bunch of people going and you do a class with this master, a class with that professor, or whatever. So if you guys have thoughts on how we can bring that up in the sport and how we can get to a better I don't remember the word pedagogy or whatever, better actual
Pedagogy,
yeah.
pedagogy,
Look at that smart
whatever it is.
man.
I don't know if I
um,
pronounced it right.
it's okay. The point is the idea of a system of learning. How do we get there? And if you guys have some thoughts on that you want to share, I'd love to
I
hear
mean,
them.
I think the biggest thing is that the newer people or the people who want to learn need to go to things like winter camp. Um, on top of that, I think just realizing that like most high skilled players are kind of obsessed with this sport, and so if you take it for you to fly up here, would you teach
Well, my internet has crashed.
winter camp? Winter camp was
Oh.
awesome. Oh,
Hold on. I lost all of that.
all
So,
right.
can you do it
I
again?
heard it.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that means if I didn't hear it, none of the people listening heard it. I think. I don't know. I don't know how tech works. Fuck
It
me.
might.
It's fucking.
Oh,
All right, we may have to end early, but hopefully you can try again, and this will be the
all
last time
right.
I ask you to try again.
Yeah.
People who are newer, people who want these sort of things, make sure you go to places like winter camp, right? Like show y'all showing up to that is what's going to make it successful. Also realize that most of the high-end fighters in this sport are a little bit obsessed with this sport. So if you reach out to them, offer to bring them, to wherever you are, most of them would be happy to spend a day or a weekend teaching y'all. It's just money generally that stops them from getting up there. So if you've got the money to offer, most people will do it. I know I was able to. The Minnesota team brought me up there earlier this year, and I ran a training camp for them. Winter camp was awesome. Y'all should definitely go to that. But yeah,
Uh, Basically, the fighters have to prioritize wanting to be better. I mean, that's the reality. It's like if people take this sport seriously and they want to be high end athletes, you got to bring in the top fighters. We actually like I've been to some training seminars where people have brought international people in for training camps. I don't think that those people have anything more to offer than even what our local people do. Some of our high end local instructors, um, in terms of the United States, I don't see that so much of a skill difference even from their perspective. But to me, the fighters have to be like, hey, I want to get better, and one, they have to travel to get to those instructors, and they have to encourage their group to bring those instructors to them.
Cool. I I I want to say like one of the problems that we face is that um, we are so far away from each other. There are only a couple of hotspots in the country, and so and then a lot of people are trying to go international, and buying your armor is expensive. So getting to
yeah.
these events, the training events, in addition to getting to tournaments, is 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 expensive. And obviously like if you want to be good at a sport, you have to make sacrifices. But is there a way that we can that you think that like so is there space for multiple training camps, or should we focus on having one blowout camp? Um, is it worth it to fly someone from across the country, or is it better to just get the dude who's slightly better than you from up the street? Up the street being like 2 states away. Um, so I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that in particular. Like, is it better to get more of this, of lesser quality, or do you think we should bang out and get and just go like fewer but much higher quality?
I kind of feel like because of what you're talking about, that there's only so many events in a year that you can go to. I would love to focus on at least having one just killer event for training, and then all that other stuff we could throw in. Like you should always try to bring someone down or try to go fight someone else somewhere if you've got the money, if it's possible. But I think that if we made 7 training events, then it would make all of the training events just worse than if we focused on 1 or 2.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think having 1 or 2 really solid events is kind of the key to that. And I do think like there are certain groups out there that have enough people that they can bring in people, and I think that's like I know Colin Campbell just went to the Palmetto crew and trained those guys, and I think they got a lot out of that. We really have to get to a space in this sport where everybody has the basics down. Like every time that I've traveled and taught and like am teaching things, it's like people aren't practicing the basics on a daily basis. And to me, that's like the number one thing to get this sport to move in like a really, really, really quality direction. Even like good athletes, I see like good athletes out there, and they still don't know like basic grappling techniques. You know, people that have been around for a long time and they still don't know the basics. And I'm like, man, we need to figure this out.
Right. And I think a lot of that comes down to just accepting what are the basics, right? Because like I know for you, pummeling is very much a basics of grappling, but realistically, it's a basics of wrestling because it's definitely not something in judo. It's super important, but also it gets a lot less important once you put armor on. Knowing the concept is still really important, but like you can't just directly pummel. So like if you look at something like pummeling, how much should people be pummeling? I think is up for dispute. We definitely do it. But we don't do it. I don't think nearly as much as y'all do. I think at least
we just do it as a warm up. That's just part of our warm up. So it's just you just warm up with it, and so
that's the standard warm up I do for one-on-ones.
Yeah, and to me, it's like it is a warm up, but it's also a skill that everybody knows because it's like the basics of moving another human around a little bit, you know?
Right.
It's like,
right.
Yeah. And so if you're not understanding that, then it's like you're going to struggle with the complex, you know, things that do come up when you are in armor.
Yep. But I mean, I think that even if you look at nationally right now, just comparing maybe the 2 of our style versus the Knights Hall style. The Knights Hall
we don't grapple.
Don't grapple nearly as much. They are a striking team.
We don't grapple. That's the rule. The number 1 rule of fighting: don't grapple.
Right.
But I will. But you know, if we do look back at the Carolina Carnage, you know, the teams that do grapple were the ones who came out on top in that, and
but by 1, right? Like that's the problem. I'm here with you, Craig. I think grappling's the most important thing. But when you have one of the top teams in the entire country being a striking-based team, it makes what are the basics a little bit of a harder question.
I'm 100% joking with I'm not 100% joking. We don't grapple as a rule, but like it's a rule because you're gonna grapple. Everyone's gonna grapple.
Right.
This is going to get a little bit into an off topic of the training, but like part of the reason the Knights Hall over-focused on, like we have changed our training because of Carnage. We focused on striking because we did chapter match styles. And in chapter match, beating your opponent up is way more important than putting them on the ground because they stop being able to perform as well 5 rounds in. So if you can fucking wreck a dude, it's worth it if you lose the round because he's not coming back the next round. That's useless in a 2-round tournament. And when we went up against some of the teams, we realized that there was some flaws in our training methods, that we were a little weaker in our grappling than we thought we were, and we were not able to effectively strike. So we changed our game. So that being said, I do agree. Like, what are the basics? It is a question, and we haven't solved that. But we definitely don't know we know what basic stances are, and like the idea of push and pull and grappling, right? So this is a big thing that I always say. Like, it doesn't matter what style of grappling you do, including sword binding, right? Like, you look at fucking HEMA. that is grappling with your blade, and it's all
Mhm.
push when they are being weak. That's when you can push. When they're being strong, go with it, and that's where you get that little fight there, that feeling, that proprioceptive feel, and you get that by practicing, by just doing it a lot. So yeah, that level of basics is definitely lacking in a lot of places, including we were lacking it in some of our fighters. So I agree with that level of like we may not know what the basics are, as in like we don't have a guard, right? We don't have a
Well,
double, but we
and
do
when
have. Yeah, go.
go ahead.
No, no,
When I say basics, I just mean basics of grappling, and that can be armored
yeah,
based, like how to grapple and armor at a basic skill level. There's things that work and things that don't work, and just knowing what that is like just a basic things. How to do a basic trip, how to do a basic head control, how to do like these are things that we see in every single
right.
event, and like that's important. Now the other basic is striking. Like one of the basics of striking is hitting people really fucking hard. Like that's the basics. Like you're not really trying to do much but hit people fucking hard. But a lot of times people can't do that. There's so many times I see people just like love tapping people on the thing, and I'm like, you're literally just wasting your energy. Movement is like another basic. Like you just see people walking around in armor that can barely fucking move, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's like you should be able to move, and you should be able to move well. And then there is basic level of battlefield awareness that can be learned, that which to me is the hardest part to teach and learn. But there is still like basic battlefield awareness that people need to practice and learn. And it's like I feel like once everybody understands that every individual athlete needs grappling, striking, movement, battlefield awareness basics, then the whole sport is gonna in the United States is gonna start making huge major improvements.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think also one of the things is getting to a level of common verbiage, common teaching. Like obviously we're gonna have differences in styles. We're gonna have disagreements on stance. We're gonna have disagreements on what's an effective 2-on-1, all of that, the details. But like if we can get a little bit closer in what we're talking about, in hey, yeah, like this is the basic of how you do this is the basic hip throw, right? We're stealing a little bit from judo, with a little bit from that, and then you can have your own subtleties to it. But like yeah, that's one thing that to Brett's point, like we don't have that, and that comes with getting our top people together, not to fight but to talk, which winter camp, I know that was specifically one of your goals last year because you talked to me about it.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, I really hope we get to see more of that stuff. Uh, I'm gonna give you guys a last chance to plug anything, to say a last note that you want to be like, yeah, everyone needs to do overhead squats or whatever the fuck it is. 5 minutes, 2 minutes, say something, and then say bye. Let's get the fuck out of here.
You want to go, Brett?
I ain't got anything. Warlord Combat Academy. Peace.
I'll give a plug for Brett. Brett is probably, in my opinion, probably the best instructor currently in the sport. So if you get the opportunity to go
Shots
visit,
fucking fired.
I'm
You
just
don't. You
saying,
give me no credit on fucking anything. We're going. I'm gonna come out there today.
But to Brett's like thing, he's like a 20-year sword fighter. He's not like some noob. He's been doing this a long time.
No, Brett's
So
amazing.
that's why I appreciate going and gathering knowledge from there. So that's your plug, Brett. My
Thank you.
thing is fucking get fitter. Everybody needs to get fitter. Lift heavy fucking weights. Fucking learn how to clean. Get technique in there, and then wrestle all the fucking time. You only need one person to wrestle against. Go find random people on the street and just start wrestling them. And then run away. Be part of your fitness training. Running
All
away
right.
from them after.
As a
wrestle.
legal note, please do not randomly attack people on the street. Please.
Okay, maybe not do that, but find people. Find people to wrestle.
All right. Thank you guys for doing this. This was fun. I learned a lot. Hopefully, our people watching learned a lot. I'll probably have you back at some point if you both are free to talk about other shit. But thank you very much. Peace
Yeah,
out.
thank you for doing this. That's awesome. I love just how dedicated and passionate you are about this sport.
Oh, thanks. I got something at least.
Very awesome.
Peace.